Hello and welcome to today's installment of the Daf Yomi, Daf 10 of Arikhin from the Talmud Bavli, and it's a Steinsaltz edition. So I'm going to dive straight in. Just turn the sentence from the previous onward. Rabbi Shimon, son of Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, and said before him, perhaps last year was a leap year, and the month that was intercalated added for the leap year was 30 days, and last year we turned 2 months that are generally deficient to full months, which meant that it had 8 full months instead of the usual 6. Consequently, we moved from consideration the 3 months that were deficient this year corresponding to the 3 extra months that were made full last year, and the moon is restored to its place, i.e. it is probably aligned with the months. Rabbi Yehuda Nasi said to him, Lamp of Israel. Indeed, so it was. No fewer than 21 trumpet blasts are sounded. So the footnote here, Porchasim sin me'esrim achas tikios. 3 blasts are fulfillment of the mitzvah that priests must blow 2 silver trumpets while communal offerings are sacrificed, as is stated, and on the day of your gladness, and in your appointed season, and on your new moon, you shall blow with the trumpets over your burnt offerings and over the sacrifice of your peace offerings. Numbers 10:10. As the Gemara explains, the stages derive that each blast actually comprises a series of 3. A long continuous blast of tekiah, a series of short blasts of teruah, and another long continuous blast. The stages also derive that these blasts are blown not only on new moons and appointed seasons, like festivals, but also on ordinary days, when the wine libation of the daily offering were poured on the altar, see Sifri. These blasts signified either the beginning or the end of each of the 3 psalms that the Levites would sing, with musical accompaniment. See Talmud 7:3 and Tosfos Yom Tov there, and Rashi on Sukkah 53b. Consequently, on an ordinary day, there were a total of 9 blasts that accompanied both the daily offering in the morning and the daily offering in the evening, in addition to another 3 blasts when the gates of the temple were opened in the morning, which amounted to a total of 21. And the other footnote, no fewer than 21 trumpet blasts are sounded in the temple every day, 3 upon the opening of the temple gates in the morning, 9 for the morning daily offering, and 9 for the afternoon daily offering. Rambam Sefer Voda Hilchot Kli Mikdash 7:5, daily in the temple, as each 3 blasts was sounded for the opening of the gate in the morning. I'll be back in a second. Okay, I'm back. Right. Where was I? On a single day. This would occur on the Friday of Sukkot, when they were saying an additional 12 blasts during the ritual of drawing the water for the water libations, 9 for the additional offerings, 3 to signal the population to cease their work before Shabbat, and 3 more to mark the beginning of Shabbat. When accompanying their song with 3 instruments, the Levites do not use fewer than 2 lyres, nevonim, lyres. There's a dispute with regard to the identity of this instrument, which is mentioned in the Bible, e.g. in Psalm 71:22, and according to the Rambam, it's a string instrument. Some explain that the Rambam is referring to the instrument known in Italian as liuto, the lute, shilte gabum. By contrast, Rashi explains that it is a wind instrument, perhaps similar to the bagpipe, which itself has ancient origins. Rabbeinu Gershom Margola maintains that this is a type of drum. He further cites an opinion that it is an instrument similar to the Monday harp. And there's a picture here. Musical accompaniment to the temple service included no fewer than 2 lyres, no more than 6, and no fewer than 2 flutes, and no more than 12. That's the Rambam Sefer Voda Hilchot Kli HaMikdash 3:4, and did not use more than 6. When flutes are played, they do not use fewer than 2 flutes and do not use more than 12. And there are 12 days during the year when the flute plays before the altar. Rashi explained that although the word makeh literally means strikes, it is used to describe playing the flute because one taps the instrument with his fingers in order to cover the various holes. Rashi further explains that on these days the Levites would recite Hallel instead of the usual daily song during the sacrifice of the daily offering, and the flute was played during this recitation. On other days the Levite song was accompanied by other instruments, but not the flute. By contrast, the Rambam indicates that the flute was played every day. See Sefer Avodah Hilchot Kli Mikdash 3:4. According to this opinion, the uniqueness of these 12 days was that the flute players would stand near the altar rather than together with the Levites who were reciting Hallel to Tiferes Yisrael and Nathani Archaner. The flute was played before the altar on 12 days of the year. At the time of the slaughter of the first Paschal offering on the 14th of Nisan, at the time of the slaughter of the second Paschal offering on the 14th of Iyar, on the first festival day of Passover, on the festival of Shavuot, and on the 8th day of the festival of Sukkot, from the Sefer Avodah Hilchot Kli Mikdash 3:6. At the time of the slaughter of the first Paschal offering on the 14th of Nisan, and at the time of the slaughter of the second Paschal offering on the 14th of Iyar, and on the first festival day of Passover, and on the festival of Shavuot, and on all 8 days of the festival of Sukkot. And one would not play with a copper flute, rather one would play with a flute of reed. What's the flute of reed? The flute played in the temple was made of reed because it produces a pleasant sound. The music concluded was playing with a single flute in order to conclude the music nicely. That's in the Rambam Sefer Avodah Hilchot Kli Mikdash 3:5. Because its sound is more pleasant. Maybe like a clarinet, I don't know. And one would conclude the music only with a single flute because it concludes the music nicely. And there's some pictures here of a Roman fresco in Pompeii depicting an actor playing a drum, such as the one described by Rabbeinu Gershom. And there's another picture of a Roman fresco in Pompeii depicting a musician holding a harp. And another picture of a traditional bagpipe from Serbia. The temple musicians were slaves of priests. This is the statement of Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Yossi says the musicians were not slaves, but the Israelites from the family of the house of Pegarim. What's Pegarim? When the Levites sang in the temple, others would play musical instruments. These musicians were Levites and also Israelites whose lineage was pure enough that their daughters could marry priests. This ruling follows the principle that the halacha is in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Yossi in his dispute with Rabbi Meir. Rambam Sefer Avodah Hilchot Kli Mikdash 3:3 and the Kesef Mishnah there. And the family of the house of Sipporah from the city of Emaum. What's Emaum? Variant readings of the text refer to the name of the city as Emmaus, a Hellenized form of the original Hebrew name Hamat. It was located at the important intersection on the road between the plains of Jerusalem and the Judean hills in the area of modern-day Latron. In addition to its strategic location, Emmaus was well known for its beauty and its fresh water. And their lineage was sufficiently pure that they would marry their daughters to members of the priesthood. Rabbi Hanina ben Atigna says they were Levites. The Mishnah teaches that there were no fewer than 21 trumpet blasts. The no fewer than 21 trumpet blasts are sounded daily in the temple, and no more than 48. The Gemara notes the Mishnah is not in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, as was taught in a Braita that Rabbi Yehuda says one may not blow fewer than 7 blasts, and one may not blow more than 16 blasts. The Gemara asks, with regard to what principle do the Tana of the Mishnah and Rabbi Yehuda disagree? The Gemara explains that Rabbi Yehuda holds a series of blasts consists of tekiah, teruah tekiah, as counted as one unit. And the rabbis hold tekiah is counted as a discrete unit, and the teruah also is counted as a discrete unit, and the one final tekiah is again counted as a discrete unit. They agree with regard to the sequence and the number of blasts. Their disagreement is only with regard to how the blasts are tallied. The Gemara asks, what is the reading of Rabbi Yehuda? As it is written in the verse, and you shall sound ukatem ateruah, Numbers 10:5, and it is written a teruah will sound yitkao, Numbers 10:6. Conclude from the fact that the Torah used a verb from the root tekiah when referring to a teruah that tekiah, teruah, tekiah together constitute one unit. And how do the rabbis interpret these verses? They explain that these verses come to teach that each teruah blast is accompanied by a plain blast, a tekiah preceding it, and another plain blast following it. The Gemara asks, what is the reason of the rabbis? As it is written, and when congregating the people you shall sound a tekiah and shall not sound a teruah in Numbers 10:7. And if it enters your mind that a tekiah, teruah, tekiah are considered one unit, will the merciful ones say perform only half a mitzvah? Rather, each sound constitute a separate mitzvah. The Gemara asks, and how does Rabbi Yehuda explain this verse? The Gemara answers that single tekiah is mentioned in the context of congregating the people was blown merely as a signal to the people to assemble, not for the purposes of fulfilling a mitzvah. which remember whose opinion always comes in units of 3 sounds. The Gemara asks, in accordance with whose opinion is that which Rav Kahana said? As Rav Kahana said, there is to be no pause between Antakia and Tura at all, but rather they are sounded in one continuous series of blasts. In accordance with whose opinion is the statement, is in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. The Gemara asks, it's not obvious. But I would necessary to point this out. The Gemara answers, it is not obvious that Rav Kahana's statement is in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. Unless you say that Rav Kahana comes to teach us halacha even according to the opinion of the rabbis, and that he is coming to exclude only the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan, who says, if one heard 9 blasts in 9 different hours on the day of Rosh Hashanah, despite the considerable gap between them, he has fulfilled his obligation. One might have thought that Rav Kahana meant that there should not be such long gaps between the sounds. Therefore, the Gemara teaches that Rav Kahana's ruling is in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, and he does not allow any pause at all between the shofar blasts. The Gemara asks, and how do you know that this is Rav Kahana's intent? One can say it is indeed so, that Rav Kahana holds in accordance with the opinion of the rabbis, and he merely excludes the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan. The Gemara answers that if so, what is the meaning of the phrase at all? When Rav Kahana said that there is no pause between a Tekiyah and 2 at all, this phrase indicates that Rav Kahana does not allow even a slight pause between blasts, which is in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. The Mishnah teaches that there are 12 days during the year when the flute plays before the altar, and it proceeds to list them. The Gemara asks, what is different about these days enumerated in the Mishnah that the flute is played before the altar specifically on those occasions? The Gemara answers, they are unique since these are the days in which an individual completes the full Hallel. As Rabbi Yochanan says in the name of Rabbi Shimon ben Yehosada, there are 18 days. It is added in Tractate Sofrim 27 that there is also one night a year when the Hallel is recited on the first night of Passover. This list of 18 days cited by Rabbi Yochanan does not exactly parallel the 12 days mentioned in the Mishnah on which the flute was played in the temple. It does not include the day of the slaughter of the first and second Paschal offerings, either because he is not referring to the time when the temple stood, or because he includes only those days when the Hallel is recited due to the special status of the day itself, rather than the days on which the Hallel is recited in conjunction with the performance of a mitzvah, and that's the Rambam say on Pesachim 118a. By contrast, the Mishnah does not include Hanukkah, because on earth there's offerings that are sacrificed on Hanukkah, and the Levites will not recite Hallel in the temple. See Hikrei Lev 32. A year on which an individual completes the full Hallel, the 8 days of the festival of Sukkot, including the 8th day of assembly, and the 8 days of Hanukkah, and the first festival day of Passover, and the festival day of assembly, i.e. Shavuot. And in the diaspora, where a second day is added to each festival due to the uncertainty over the precise date, there are 21 days. The 9 of the days of the festival of Sukkot, and the 8 days of Hanukkah, and the first 2 festival days of Passover, and the 2 festival days of assembly, i.e. Shavuot. The Gemara asks, what is different about the festival of Sukkot, that we say Hallel every day? What is different about Passover, that we do not say Hallel every day, but only on the first day? The Gemara answers, the days of the festival of Sukkot are distinct from one another in regard to their additional offerings, as the number of bulls offered changes each day of Sukkot. See Numbers 29, 12 to 38. Since each day is unique, the full Hallel is recited on each day. By contrast, days of Passover are not distinct from one another with regard to their additional offerings. See Numbers 28, 24. The Fesach ein chalukin b'karbanosehen. Some explain that this indicates that Passover differs from Sukkot in that the days following the first day of Passover are subsidiary to the first day and do not have their own independent status as festival days in their own right. The Shulchan Aruch Harav or Chaim 496. In Pesika de Rav Kahana, appendix paragraph 2, a different reason is suggested as to why the full Hallel is not recited after the first day of Passover. It is that the Egyptians were drowned in the sea, and the verse states, rejoice not when your enemy falls. Proverbs 24:17. The commentary discussed at length the relationship between these two reasons. See the Beis Yosef and the commentaries on Shulchan Aruch or Chaim 494, and therefore the full Hallel is recited only on the first day, which is the first day on which the additional offerings for a festival are sacrificed. The Gemara objects. On Shabbat, which is also distinct from the other days of the week with regard to its additional offerings, let us say Hallel. The Gemara explains, Shabbat is not called an appointed day in the Torah. The verse states, the appointed season of the Lord, which you shall proclaim to be a holy convocation, holy convocations. These are my appointed seasons, Leviticus 23:2. This indicates that it is the festivals whose dates are established by the Jewish people. Although the sanctification of the new moon we call appointed seasons, this includes Shabbat, which occurs every 7 days, regardless of the calendar date. In the Torah, and the Hallel is only recited on days that are referred to in the Torah as appointed days, Leviticus 23:4, which are days of rejoicing. The Gemara objects on the new moon, which is called an appointed day, let us say Hallel. The Gemara explains the new moon is not sanctified with regard to the prohibition against performance of labor, and Hallel is recited only on a day that is sanctified, as it is written, and you shall have a song as in the night when the festival is sanctified, Isaiah 30:29, which indicates that a night that is sanctified as a festival, which includes the prohibition of labor, requires song, but one that is not sanctified as a festival does not require song. The Gemara objects on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, which are called an appointed day, and are also sanctified with regard to the prohibition against prohibition of labor. Let us say Hallel. The Gemara explains Hallel is not recited on those days due to the statement of Rabbi Abahu. And Rabbi Abahu said that the ministering angel said before the Holy One, blessed be He, Master of the universe, for what reason do the Jewish people not recite songs of praise, I Hallel before you on Rosh Hashanah and on Yom Kippur? He said to them, is it possible that while the king is sitting on the throne of judgment and the books of life and the books of death are open before him, that the Jewish people would be reciting joyous songs of praise before me? Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur are somber days of judgment whose mood is incompatible with the recitation of Hallel. The Gemara objects, what about Chanukah, which has neither this or that? There's no special offering on it, nor is labor prohibited, and yet one says Hallel. The Gemara explains Hallel is recited on Hanukkah not because of its status as a festival, because of the miracle that occurred on those days. And the Gemara objects, if so on Purim, when there is also this factor, a miracle occurred on that day, let's say Hallel. Rabbi Yitzchak said Hallel is not recited on Purim because one does not recite a song of praise for a miracle that occurred outside of Eretz Yisrael. Rav Nachman by Yitzchak objects to this explanation, but there is the exodus from Egypt, which was a miracle that took place outside of Eretz Yisrael. Yet we say Hallel on Passover now in commemoration of it. And the Gemara responds that this is as is the Torah in a Braita. Until the Jewish people entered Eretz Yisrael, all lands were deemed fit for songs of praise to be recited for miracles performed within their borders, as all lands were treated equally. But once the Jewish people entered Eretz Yisrael, that land became endowed with greater sanctity, and all the other lands were no longer deemed fit for songs of praise to be recited for miracles performed within them. Well, now Nachman says an alternative answer as to why Hallel is not recited on Purim. The reading of the Megillah I describe as the equivalent to reciting Hallel. Now it says a third reason, grant the Hallel is said there when we're calling the Exodus from Egypt, as after that salvation one can recite the phrase the Hallel, give praise, O servants of the Lord, Psalms 113:1. Since after the Israelites' servitude to Pharaoh ended with their salvation, they were truly servants of the Lord and not servants of Pharaoh. What can it be said here, after the salvation commemorated on Purim, give praise as servants of the Lord, which would indicate that after the salvation of Jewish people were only servants of the Lord and not servants of Achashverosh? Not so. As even the miracle of Purim, we are still servants of Achashverosh, since Jews remained in exile under Persian rule. The Gemara objects, and according to the opinion of Rav Nachman, who says that the reading of the Megillah itself is an act of reciting Hallel, there is a difficulty. Isn't taught in the Bible that only once the Jewish people entered Eretz Yisrael, that land became endowed with greater sanctity, and all the other lands were no longer fit for songs of praise to be recited for miracles performed with them? How then may one recite a form of Hallel by reading the Megillah? The Gemara answers, he maintains that once the people were exiled from Eretz Yisrael, the other lands returned to their initial suitability and were once again deemed fit for reciting Hallel in commemoration of miracles performed within them. And the Mishnah teaches, and one would not play a copper flute, abov, rather one would play a flute, an abov of reed, because its sound is pleasant. The Gemara asks, the Mishnah opens by referring to flute and calls them halil, and then concludes by referring to playing the abov. Rav Papa said, a halil is the same as an abov. Hayina chalil hayina, the abov. In the Rambam's commentary on the Mishnah, it's explained that the flute as a whole is called a halil, but the top of the instrument into which the individual blows and which contains a hole is called an abov. Its original name was abov, and why does the Mishnah call it a halil? Halil. The reason is that its sound is sweet, hali. The sages taught in a Braita there were flutes in the temple. It was smooth and it was thin, and its sides were thin, and was made from reed, and it was in existence from the days of Moses. The king issued a command, and they plated up the flute with gold, but then its sound was not as pleasant as it was previously. They therefore removed its plating, and its sound was then as pleasant as it was before. Similarly, there was a cymbal in the temple. It was made from copper, and its sound was pleasant. It became damaged, and the sages brought artisans from Alexandria in Egypt. And there's a picture here, a panoramic view of modern-day Alexandria. The city was known as Alexandria in Egypt in order to distinguish it from many cities called Alexandria in other countries. This port city, which lies west of the Nile Delta, was founded by Alexander the Great in 332 BC. In its glory days, during the Ptolemaic rule in Egypt and until the end of the Mishnaic period, Alexandria was one of the largest cities and cultural centers in the world. The greatest scientists, doctors, and artisans at the time lived in Alexandria, and its doctors were renowned throughout the world. The sages of the Talmud were very familiar with Alexandrian doctors and held them in high regard, often praising their medical accomplishments of this important urban center. And they repaired it, but its sound was not as pleasant as before. They removed the materials with which the cymbal had been repaired, and its sound was then as pleasant as it had been before the repair. There was a mortar in the temple. It was made of copper, and it was made from the days of Moses, and it was used to compound the spices. The word mefatema, a verb form of pitum, denotes a type of preparation via crushing and mixing various ingredients. The use of the term in this context with regard to the mortar itself was based on another meaning of the word pitum, which is to enhance or to grant a pleasant aroma. Rabbeinu Gershom Maor Hagodah Rashi similarly explains that the enhancement was caused by the distinct sound of the mortar, in accordance with a brighter that states that the individual crushing the spices was supposed to say aloud, "Crush well, be well crushed," because the sound of one's voice has a positive effect on the spices, as the Karit at 6b. And the incident became damaged, and they brought artisans from Alexandria in Egypt, and they repaired it, but it did not compound the spices as well as it had before. They removed the materials with which the mortar had been repaired, and it then compounded the spices as it had before it was repaired. The Bible concludes, these two copper vessels, the cymbal and the mortar, were remnants from the first temple, and they were damaged, and they could not be repaired in an effective manner. And it was with regard to the copper vessels constructed for the first temple that David said, all these vessels which Hiram made for King Solomon in the house of the Lord were burnished brass. King 7:45, and in a parallel verse, bright brass, 2 Chronicles 4:6, and with regard to these items it states in the verse describing the vessels that Ezra brought to Jerusalem, and the vessels of fine gold brass, too precious as gold, Ezra 8:7. Rav and Shmuel disagree as to the meaning of the phrase too precious as gold. One said each and every one of these brass vessels were as valuable as 2 vessels made from gold, and the other one said the 2 of them together were as valuable as 1 vessel made from gold. Similarly, Rav Yosef teaches the following explanation found in a Baita: the 2 of them together were as valuable as 1 vessel made from gold. The Gemara cites another explanation of the verse in Ezra. It is taught in a Baita that Rabbi Nathan said the cymbals and mortars were pairs, i.e. there are 2 cymbals and 2 mortars, as is stated in the aforementioned verse 2. Do not read it as 2 shenayim, but as pairs, sheniyim. Ramban Shimon ben Gamliel teaches in a Baita the Siloam pool. What's the Siloam pool? The Siloam pool hewed in rock on the southern slope of the city of David, southeast of the old city of Jerusalem, outside the city walls. Water and the Gichan spring filled the pool, transported thereby 2 aqueducts. Archaeological excavations uncovered this second temple pool only in the early 21st century. And there's pictures here, very interesting, of the aqueduct leading to the Siloam pool, and a model of Jerusalem depicting the Siloam pool. Used to spirit water forth from an opening with a diameter like that of an Issa coin. An Issa was a small coin generally made from copper. It is mentioned several places in the Talmud in reference to a particular size. According to the available findings, the Issa has a diameter of roughly 22 millimeters. The king issued a command and they widened the opening so that its waters would increase, but the waters actually decreased. And they subsequently decreased the size of the opening again, and it once again spurted forth water as it had before. All this serves to uphold that which is stated in the verse. Let not the wise man glory in his wisdom. As he explains that the verse states with regard to the vessels of the temple, all this in writing as the Lord had made me wise, in 1 Chronicles 28:19. Indicate that the vessel of the manufactured prophetic instruction. This is alluded to in the continuation of the passage from the Jerusalem from Jeremiah, cited in the Gemara. But let him that glories in this, when he understands and knows me, Jeremiah 9:23. You let the mighty man glory in his might, Jeremiah 9:22. Man should not think that he can accomplish anything he wishes. And likewise, Rabbi Shimon Gamliel would say, with regard to the musical instruments in the temple, there was no hidolim in the temple. The Gemara asked, what is hidolim? Rabbi said it is a hydraulic organ. And there's a picture here of a reconstructed hydraulic organ. Rashi explains that Tavla Gogodana refers to a type of bell. This is also indicated in the commentary of Rabbeinu Gershom Mohagola. By contrast, the Arakh records the text of Tavla Gogana and explains that this refers to the organo, the organ. This is always the statement of Rabbi Shimon recorded in the Jerusalem Talmud Sukkah 5:6. There are textual variants of the word Hidolim, including Hirdot and Hirdavlis. In the Jerusalem Talmud, it appears as Ardavlis. The text used by Rabbeinu Gershom Mohagola stated Hydralus. Rabbi Eliyahu Bahor explains that it refers to the Greek hydraulis, the hydraulic organ. Others claim the hydraulic organ is actually the magrifa mentioned next paragraph. The hydraulic organ was in use during the Roman era, but the invention is attributed to a Greek engineer living in Alexandria during the 3rd century BCE. The upper section of the organ contains a set of pipes of different lengths into which air was pumped, creating different notes. The air was pumped by pistons that were themselves powered by water. The water supply was controlled by handles or pedals. It was not used in the temple because its sound is pleasant, but it disrupts the melody. Rav Barshila said that Rav Matana said that Shmuel said there was an instrument called magrifa in the temple. That's the end of the Omid. I wish you a very good day, night, afternoon, and all the best. Take care, bye.